Hey guys, tonight we wander into the warm, flickering corridors of a Maya city-state palace where the scent of burning copal drifts lazily through the air and polished stucco walls glint in the fading sun. You trudge across smooth limestone floors, trying not to stumble over the occasional carved serpent or scattered offerings, and you quickly realize, if you were planning to casually stroll through this palace without knowing the rules, you probably won't survive this social gauntlet. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, go ahead and post your location and local time in the comments. It's always fun to see where in the world we're all sneaking into imaginary Maya banquets. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step through a wide doorway framed by intricately painted stucco, feeling a gentle wave of heat rise from the polished stone. Around you, the palace hums with life. Nobles in jade necklaces and feathered headdresses whisper behind fans. Children with painted faces giggle as they dash between pillars, and musicians strike taut strings on their small harps. The floor beneath your sandals has been worn smooth by countless feet, yet each mat laid for seating seems carefully measured, as though the gods themselves dictated the arrangement. Historians still argue whether Maya palace layouts were primarily symbolic or purely practical, and as you glance at the mosaic of glyphs decorating a nearby wall, you can almost feel the weight of centuries of unspoken rules pressing down. A servant approaches carrying a shallow carved bowl of water scented with aromatic herbs. You dip your fingers, letting the liquid trickle over your hands, a gesture of purification that seems simple until you notice the subtle differences in how others perform the same motion. One misstep, a slightly too casual flick of the wrist, a delayed nod, and you risk the silent disapproval of those perched above you on their mats of prestige. You notice tiny cues, the way a hand rests on a thigh, the angle of a chin, even the direction of your gaze. These are all subtle hieroglyphs in motion, and if you misread them, your fate might not be physical danger, but social exile, which in the Maya court could feel nearly as sharp. The air smells faintly of roasted maize and cacao, punctuated by the earthy aroma of burning copal incense. Musicians pluck the strings of small harps, filling the palace with gentle rhythms that remind you of wind through reeds. Children dart past, some carrying small trays of painted fruit, while servants adjust feathered headdresses on nobles, who in turn glance over their shoulders with a practiced mixture of curiosity and judgment. Every movement is measured. You realize you are not merely an observer, you are part of a delicate performance, one that has been rehearsed for generations, yet still retains the tension of the unknown. Quirky as it may seem, some Maya banquets apparently featured performance animals, like tame parrots or even small monkeys, weaving among the guests and occasionally stealing a bit of fruit, which could spark a mixture of laughter and mild indignation. The juxtaposition of such whimsy against strict social hierarchy is oddly comforting, as if even the ancient Maya understood the need for levity amid ceremony. You pause near a column carved with a jaguar, tracing the grooves with your fingers, feeling the coolness beneath your palms. It reminds you of the careful balance the Maya struck between display and function. This palace is designed to impress, yes, but every detail, stone reliefs, seating mats, woven tapestries, is also a guidebook to etiquette. You start to notice the microcosm of society unfolding around you. A noble nudges a nearby attendant to adjust a belt, while a musician glances toward a scribe waiting for the cue to begin a new melody. Even your own heartbeat seems too loud in comparison to the controlled rhythm of palace life. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen the Maya used? Well, here in the heart of a banquet, the oddities continue. Some attendees dab themselves with fragrant pastes or powders, and while historians still argue whether these were for hygiene, ritual, or status display, you can't help but feel grateful you're only observing rather than participating fully. And yet, at this early stage, the rules are clear. Posture, gaze, and timing govern every interaction. You are learning, slowly, how to read the room, or risk being misunderstood in a court where misreading a single gesture could ripple outward like a pebble tossed in a sacred cenote. As the sun dips lower, flickering through carved latticework windows, you realize you are not just watching a historical reenactment in your mind. You are inhabiting the senses of those who once moved carefully through these halls, aware of every whisper, glance, and gesture. The palace doesn't just host the banquet, it teaches a lesson in subtlety, observation, and the quiet power of knowing when to speak, when to smile, and when to let the music guide your body. You take a deep breath of incense-laced air, letting the scents, textures, and muted sounds settle into your bones, preparing you for the next stage, navigating the treacherous waters of seating and social rank, where every cushion is a battlefield, and every nod a potential ally or enemy. You step further into the banquet hall, and immediately, the importance of where you sit hits you like a gentle but firm wall. Each mat, each cushion, even the slight elevation of a platform signals rank, favor, and alliances. You pause, noticing a narrow corridor leading to the central dais where the highest nobles gather. The mats there gleam with woven patterns and jade inlays, almost daring you to approach. Historians still argue whether Maya seating arrangements were codified in written rules or evolved through social convention. And as you trudge forward, you realize that guessing wrong is not merely awkward, it could subtly undermine your perceived status for the rest of the evening. A servant approaches with a small fan of woven feathers and silently indicates the appropriate spot for you, a gesture more delicate than any instruction you've encountered. You crouch, careful not to lean too far, careful not to look too relaxed. Around you, the murmurs of other attendees create a low, melodic background hum, punctuated by occasional laughter. One noble leans slightly forward, signaling the conversation is about to shift. Another glances sideways at a scribe, perhaps silently confirming a score in the ongoing social game. You realize that your posture, the tilt of your head, even the angle of your eyes are all being read as though you were an open manuscript. The idea is subtle but crucial. In Maya society, your position is more than physical, it's narrative. You glance down at your own mat. It's modest, yet finely woven, the patterns of maize and water glyphs suggesting both fertility and flow. The mats are not merely functional, they are symbols, and some scholars still debate the precise meanings behind certain motifs. You can feel the texture beneath your fingertips, a gentle reminder that even comfort is political. A playful monkey in the corner squeaks and snatches a piece of fruit from a nearby servant. Laughter ripples through the room, and you can't help but smile, but a subtle glance from a nearby noble reminds you that amusement must be tempered with respect. Silent signals dominate the room. A hand placed lightly on the knee might indicate consent or acknowledgement, while the way someone sips from their cup could hint at impatience or favor. You watch a young noble adjust his headdress, signaling submission to a senior attendee, while a group of scribes exchanged barely audible whispers. Every movement, every gesture contributes to a carefully choreographed social dance. You begin to understand why Maya banquets lasted for hours, and why historians still argue whether these long affairs were more about politics or pleasure, or perhaps an inseparable blend of both. Food is present, yes, but you hardly touch it yet. The hierarchy dictates that you first demonstrate awareness and respect for others' positions. You notice small acts of courtesy. A noble subtly deflects attention from a lower-ranking attendant who fumbles with a cup, preventing embarrassment while preserving order. It's strangely familiar, like watching a modern office gathering, except magnified with ceremonial intensity. And then a quirky tradition appears. Some guests wear masks for portions of the banquet, representing animal spirits. The reasoning is debated, ritual, humor, or a subtle critique of hierarchy, but it adds a light, whimsical layer to an otherwise meticulously regulated environment. You adjust your posture again, feeling the slight stiffness creep into your legs, and realize you've been unconsciously scanning the room for cues for some time. Your senses are heightened. The glint of jade, the subtle scent of cacao, even the cadence of footsteps across the polished floor. All of it communicates rank, intent, and expectation. A child passes by, balancing a small tray of flowers, offering them to those seated near the dais. You note who accepts gracefully and who declines, and suddenly the pattern becomes clear. Acceptance, rejection, delay, or subtle gaze shifts,
all broadcast social intelligence. Every move you make here is recorded silently, and in some ways, your awareness alone may determine how favorably your presence is received. You lean back slightly, observing a small cluster of nobles exchanging murmured commentary over a performance about to begin. Your mat feels oddly grounding now, reminding you that your position, though not at the dais, still affords you a view of the entire social ecosystem. You begin to enjoy the subtle tension, the interplay of hierarchy and humor, the ritualized politeness that shapes the palace's rhythm. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen we mentioned earlier? Well, here, in the delicate sway of mats and whispered cues, you realize that even seemingly absurd customs are part of a network of signals that keeps the palace and its people functioning harmoniously. As the music swells and the servants quietly circulate, you start to anticipate the next step, tasting the foods that have been carefully prepared, each dish carrying its own cultural weight and meaning. But for now, you remain acutely aware of your place, your gestures, and the unspoken rules that govern every inch of space. Every nod, every glance, every subtle shift of weight matters in a dance older than the walls themselves. And as you settle into this rhythm, you begin to appreciate the artistry behind social navigation, a skill as demanding as any ritual or performance you'll witness tonight.
The scent of roasted maize and rich cacao grows stronger as a tray of food is carried past you, and suddenly your stomach reminds you that all this careful positioning has been leading to this very moment. You reach out to accept a small, elaborately carved bowl, noting the gentle curve of its rim and the careful precision of its decoration. You sip cautiously. The bitter richness of cacao, possibly mixed with chili or honey, awakens your senses. Historians still argue whether the Maya drank their cacao as a purely ceremonial beverage, a daily stimulant, or a subtle status symbol. And as you take a second sip, you can see why this seemingly simple drink carried so much weight. Around you, the table is a parade of maize tamales, roasted game and vegetables, each prepared with layers of ritual meaning. A peculiar detail catches your eye. Some offerings include insects, like grasshoppers roasted with spices. You hesitate, tasting one small bite. Oddly satisfying. The idea of entomophagy may seem unusual today, but among the Maya, it reflected both resourcefulness and ritual symbolism. You glance at a nearby noble, whose raised eyebrows suggest that your attempt at sampling the insects has not gone unnoticed, and you quickly remember the silent rules of etiquette. Eat modestly, show appreciation, and never overreach for the unusual delicacies first. The textures are as vivid as the flavors. The crunch of toasted seeds, the smooth, slightly sticky masa of tamales, the coarse husks of fresh corn. A light breeze carries the scent of cacao mingled with the earthy aroma of the palace stones, reminding you that every bite is also a sensory performance. Some Maya banquets included offerings of wild fruits with hallucinogenic properties. Historians still debate whether these were primarily ceremonial, recreational, or status-driven. You feel a thrill at the thought that your predecessors may have experienced subtle shifts of perception while navigating the same complex social hierarchies, perhaps giggling over a small trick of the senses while maintaining perfect posture. You notice that the presentation of food is as critical as the food itself. Each dish is carefully arranged, often in symbolic shapes, a fish for fertility, a serpent for renewal. You attempt a polite bite of maize tamale, aware that even the way you hold your utensils, or in this case your fingers, could signal refinement or ignorance. A servant hovers, ready to refill bowls, and you subtly mirror the gestures of nearby nobles, hoping to blend seamlessly into the choreography. The quirkier customs appear again. Small bowls sometimes contain miniature figurines or symbolic objects meant to remind diners of ancestors or spirits. You wonder if you're supposed to eat around them or if they're purely decorative. Some scholars argue the function was entirely symbolic, others that it was interactive, a playful element in an otherwise formal setting. Your eyes catch a tray of cacao paste shaped into tiny animals,
And you notice that younger nobles eagerly examine them before tasting. Their delicate handling is much a display of dexterity as appreciation. You mimic their approach, careful not to fumble, and suddenly you understand. Every act of eating here is layered with social meaning, subtle cues, and personal flair. A misstep, biting too eagerly, reaching too quickly, could imply greed or disrespect. You sip your cacao again, letting the warmth spread through your chest, imagining the ceremonial importance these flavors held in the lives of Maya elites. Across the hall, a ceremonial dish arrives, including smoked fish, ground maize, and exotic herbs. A young noble theatrically samples the fish, nodding at the cook in what seems like silent approval. You follow suit, tasting cautiously. The smoky flavor lingers, mingling with the slightly bitter cacao residue on your tongue. You are acutely aware that food is more than sustenance here. It is a conversation, a negotiation, and sometimes even a subtle test of loyalty or courage. And then there's the strange delight of the fringe, small dishes containing seeds that might cause mild hallucinations, spicy pastes, or fermented drinks. You take a tiny taste and your senses sharpen, though the room remains comfortably calm, a testament to centuries of practiced moderation. You watch the patterns unfold as nobles and attendants navigate each dish, serving each other with precise gestures. One small incident, a spilled bowl of seeds, elicits a flurry of apologies and gentle laughter, yet no one loses face. The etiquette is strict, but also forgiving in performance, allowing for small human slips to become moments of charm rather than disaster. You notice the oddities, like edible insects or miniature symbolic objects, add a playful texture to what might otherwise feel like a rigid and intimidating social environment. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen? Well, here, the bizarre ingredients in the food are the culinary equivalent, practical, ritualistic, and slightly absurd all at once. By the time you set your bowl down, you feel a layered understanding forming in your mind. Eating at a Maya banquet is not just nourishment, it's an active exercise in perception, subtlety, and connection. Each flavor, texture, and quirky element contributes to a web of social awareness that will carry you into the next stage, observing entertainment, courtly games, and conversation, where your senses will be equally engaged, but in different, delightfully unpredictable ways. You pause, letting the warmth of cacao and the tactile satisfaction of holding your bowl remind you of the delicate balance between pleasure and etiquette, curiosity and respect.
You lean back slightly, brushing crumbs from your hands, and turn your attention to the center of the hall. Here, the performance begins. Dancers adorned with vibrant feathers whirl in carefully choreographed patterns, and jugglers toss small, brightly colored balls in precise arcs that make you blink in admiration. The air vibrates with the rhythm of drums and the soft hum of flutes, and you realize that this is not mere entertainment. It's a language of status, skill, and ritual all at once. Historians still argue whether these performances were intended primarily for spiritual significance or social display, and as you watch, you sense that the answer is likely a nuanced mixture of both. The conversation around you shifts subtly as well. Nobles murmur in hushed tones, exchanging observations about alliances, favors, or the latest palace gossip. You try to listen, noting how a slight laugh or a subtle nod can convey approval or disapproval without a single word. You lean in slightly, careful to match the tone and volume of those around you, realizing that speech at a Maya banquet is a dance as precise as any performed by the entertainers before you. A small slip of phrasing, an overly direct compliment, or a delayed acknowledgement could ripple through the room in ways you might not immediately perceive. Courtly games begin, some involving dice, some miniature wrestling matches performed by acrobatic children, and others more abstract, like contests of riddles or storytelling. The games are layered with symbolism, skill, wit, and attention to social nuance all influence perception.
You watch as a young noble subtly offers a winning move to a friend, eliciting laughter from a small circle, while the elders observe with calculated interest. Quirky as it seems, some games even involve mock arguments where a participant might intentionally lose to demonstrate humility, and you can't help but smile at the playful strategy behind what initially appeared chaotic. Music threads through the entire experience, shifting in tempo and style to mark transitions in activity. You notice that dancers often mirror conversational energy, speeding or slowing according to the laughter or murmured approval of those seated nearby. Even the air seems to pulse with meaning. The fragrance of copal mixes with the earthy smell of roasted maize, subtly reminding you that the banquet engages every sense, not just taste or sight. You quietly marvel at the layers of intention, the entertainers performing their roles, the guests signaling status, and the room itself acting as an orchestrated stage. A curious custom catches your eye. Some attendees wear small animal masks for portions of the entertainment, perhaps as an homage to gods, ancestors, or personal totems. The masks seem playful, yet you notice the careful observation that accompanies their use. Historians still debate whether these masks served primarily spiritual, comedic, or social signaling purposes, and you find yourself enjoying the ambiguity. It reminds you that the Maya court was not only formal, but imaginative, a place where humor and ritual could coexist, sometimes within a single gesture. You overhear a subtle debate about who will preside over the next storytelling round, and the nuances are fascinating. A tilted head, a faint smile, or the way one participant adjusts a necklace can shift expectations instantly. You realize that even as an observer, you are participating. Your reactions, posture, and attentiveness are quietly registered by those around you. A misstep in attention or an overly obvious yawn could disrupt the delicate equilibrium of respect and amusement, and you carefully maintain a posture of calm interest, letting your body absorb the rhythm and flow of palace life. The performances are punctuated with moments of quiet reflection. A solo dancer pauses dramatically, drawing your attention to a particular motif in her costume, and you notice the intricate symbolism of feathers, shells, and jade. Each element carries layers of meaning: fertility, strength, connection to deities, and you start to appreciate the subtle storytelling happening in parallel with the music and games. Even small gestures, a nod to an elder, a bow to a fellow performer, are charged with significance. Quirky as it seems, the Maya sometimes included playful pranks in performances. An animal puppet might sneakily snatch a prop, eliciting laughter, while allowing observers to gauge character, humor, and social savvy. You sip a bit of remaining cacao, letting the warmth settle as you watch the ebb and flow of attention, laughter, and performance. It occurs to you that conversation, entertainment, and games are all deeply intertwined. Each element reinforces social bonds, tests subtle cues, and celebrates cultural knowledge simultaneously. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen? Well, these playful, symbolic, and slightly bizarre entertainments are the sensory equivalent: quirky, essential, and entirely woven into the fabric of etiquette. As you settle into the rhythm, you feel your senses sharpened, your awareness heightened, and your appreciation of this delicate dance grows. Soon the night will begin to wind down, and the final phase, farewells, gifts, and ceremonial exits, will call upon everything you've learned tonight.
The air has grown cooler now, carrying the lingering scent of roasted maize, warm stone, and faintly sweet cacao. You feel the evening gently shifting toward closure, and the subtle signals of departure begin to ripple through the hall. Attendees rise from their mats with a fluid grace, offering silent bows or small nods to signal respect and acknowledgement. You realize that leaving a Maya banquet is nearly as nuanced as arriving. Every gesture, glance, and word has the potential to cement your reputation or, conversely, create unintended offense. Historians still argue whether Maya farewell customs were codified rituals or largely intuitive social practice. But tonight, you witness the full choreography firsthand. Servants quietly circulate with small trays of gifts, jars of honey, woven textiles, and carved figurines, each one carefully selected and meant to honor particular relationships or achievements. You accept a tiny woven basket, noting the intricate patterns that encode blessings, status, or familial symbolism. A nearby noble smiles faintly, and you instinctively return the gesture with a subtle tilt of the head, aware that misreading such cues could be seen as arrogance or ignorance. The exchange is delicate. Too effusive, and you risk appearing greedy. Too restrained, and you might seem ungrateful. The balance is almost imperceptible, and yet, tonight, you navigate it successfully, feeling a quiet satisfaction at having learned the rhythm. Movement in the hall slows, and conversation softens to a gentle murmur. You notice younger attendants assisting elders, guiding them toward the exit, and offering quiet words of thanks or encouragement. A playful quirk surfaces. Small tokens of humor, tiny figurines, jokes whispered between friends, help ease the tension of formality without breaking decorum. You reflect on the subtle dance of etiquette you've been tracing all evening, from the precise placement of your mat to the measured intake of food, from attentive observation of performances to carefully calibrated conversation, and now, finally, to the grace of departure. Each phase reinforces social bonds while allowing personal expression in minor, permissible ways. As you move toward the exit, you feel the layered textures of the evening settling around you, the cool stone beneath your feet, the lingering warmth of cacao, the soft hum of distant drums fading into the night. You notice the last gestures of respect exchanged, bows, nods, a fleeting touch of the hand on the shoulder, and appreciate how these seemingly small acts speak volumes. Historians still debate the extent to which gift-giving and farewells were political versus ceremonial. Yet the effect is undeniable. They create closure, reinforce memory, and, perhaps most importantly, maintain harmony within the social web. Outside the palace, the night air wraps around you, carrying the faint echo of music and laughter. You clutch your gifts with a mixture of pride and humility, acutely aware that your conduct throughout the evening will ripple through the social memory of those present. Some Maya banquets even included small ritualistic exits where guests would pause at specific thresholds or repeat brief gestures meant to honor deities or ancestors. You step through carefully, mirroring the practiced motions you've observed, feeling the rhythm of the palace life linger in your bones. The final moments bring an unexpected sense of intimacy. A noble quietly whispers a polite acknowledgement, a child waves a small hand in farewell, and a servant's eyes briefly meet yours with unspoken approval. The combination of subtle cues, shared humor, and ceremonial propriety has created a tapestry of experience that is as complex as it is satisfying. You walk away with a deeper understanding of the delicate interplay between hierarchy, ritual, and personal expression, appreciating how even the most absurd or quirky customs, miniature figurines, edible insects, playful performances, are integral threads in the social fabric. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen? Tonight's quirky banquet details feel just as essential, leaving practicality, symbolism, and amusement into a coherent, memorable evening. As you finally leave the palace grounds, you feel a quiet warmth in your chest. The night is calm,
the stars twinkling above like scattered gems, and the lessons of the banquet settle gently within you. You are not only a witness to a forgotten etiquette, but also a participant in a centuries-old ritual of observation, awareness, and respect. A quiet dance that continues in echoes long after the last song fades.
Now let's slow everything down for the wind down. The night air is soft around you, carrying the faint scent of incense, maize, and warm stone, as if the palace itself has exhaled and is settling into quiet rest. You walk slowly, letting your muscles relax from the alert tension of hours spent observing, listening, and navigating. Every sense you've exercised tonight, the taste of cacao, the shimmer of feathers, the subtle rhythm of gestures and glances, feels tucked gently into memory, like a small treasure stored for later reflection. The world outside the palace seems quieter now, softer, as if it too has been lulled by the careful choreography of the evening. Your thoughts drift lazily through the patterns you observed, the hierarchy embedded in mats and cushions, the silent signals of respect and approval, the playful quirks that made the evening human and joyful. You imagine each noble, servant, and musician at home, adjusting to their own pace, the palace slowly emptying of its vibrant energy, leaving only echoes of laughter, whispered jokes, and the soft scrape of feet over stone. You breathe in deeply, letting the memories of warmth, color, and sound settle into your body, a gentle pulse of experience that lingers even as the bustle fades. Even the quirkiest details, the edible insects, the miniature figurines, the playful pranks, now feel comforting, like small secret jokes shared between centuries. You realize how deeply these little eccentricities shape the rhythm of the banquet, balancing the weight of ceremony with the lightness of human play. The palace's lessons in observation, humility, and attentiveness feel timeless. You let a slow smile cross your face, appreciating that these rituals, though foreign and distant, echo familiar truths about respect, patience, and the beauty of small gestures. Your pace slows further. The palace walls, once towering and imposing, now feel like gentle guides, their carved symbols and mosaics softly glowing in your memory. The cool night breeze brushes your skin, carrying away the tension of the day, and you notice how the lessons of etiquette and performance and presence can settle into you like quiet rhythms, soothing and familiar. You imagine the distant sound of drums and flutes fading, the laughter of children echoing faintly, and the ceremonial aromas lingering just a moment longer like a whispered promise of connection across time. You take one last slow, deep breath, letting every sensation, every memory of this immersive evening settle into calm awareness. The world is quieter now, the night stretching endlessly, peaceful and forgiving. And as you exhale, you carry the delicate balance of curiosity, observation, and gentle play into the stillness, feeling the echoes of a forgotten banquet in the soft rhythm of your own heartbeat.